You're watching Reality Check. The worst fears of the world appear to be coming true with the rapid advance of the Taliban in Afghanistan. In just 6 weeks since the US troop withdrawal, the Taliban has seized or is about to seize control of large swaths of territory across Afghanistan. A journey marked by violence and conflict. Just consider this map based on reports in the BBC and other media for a sense of how swiftly the Taliban have advanced. Across the board, as you can see, all those red areas under Taliban control and many areas which are contested and just a few areas now left where the government has full control. Even more worryingly, the Taliban's successful shift in strategy from capturing swaths of Afghan countryside to now seizing control of more and more capitals of Afghanistan's provinces. In the past 7 days or just a week, capitals of at least 10 of Afghanistan's 34 provinces have fallen to the Taliban, starting with Zaranj in Nimruz province to Ghazni, which fell today. Ghazni is just 150 kilometers from Kabul and along a crucial highway that may give access to Taliban to the capital. Another disturbing turn: during the Taliban's earlier rule, northern Afghanistan was holding out. The city of Mazar-e-Sharif was in a sense a capital of resistance. Now even Mazar is under threat, with the country's embattled President Ashraf Ghani having to fly in personally to Mazar to rally troops. While a Taliban resurgence in the aftermath of the US pullout was expected, this rapid surge has bewildered those tracking the Afghan story, including Afghanistan's own ruling regime. All the more given the billions of dollars spent training and equipping the Afghan army, which, barring some honorable exceptions, appear to be caving in far quicker than anticipated. Twitter videos like these, of which NDTV can't independently verify, put out by Taliban spokespersons, purportedly show Taliban forces taking over military vehicles and weapons and equipment left behind by fleeing soldiers, some of whom still seem to be seen in that video having either been captured or surrendered to the Taliban. The government now seems to be increasingly dependent on controversial Afghan warlords like General Rashid Dostum, seen in this video tweeted by an Afghan Defense Ministry spokesperson, arriving in the crucial northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif with a contingent of commandos. There are, of course, exceptions within the Afghan army, notably young field commanders like General Sami Sadat, who's been leading the fight against the Taliban in the Taliban strongholds of South Afghanistan, Helmand and Kandahar. General Sadat's Twitter timeline reflects the rising role of social media in this latest round of the Afghan Great Game, with these images that you're seeing on the screen that he's posted to suggest that the army is not down and out. There are also tweets like this one, this video tweeted by a Defense Ministry official, meant to show the pushback against the perception of an Afghan army on the run. Let's listen. Social media is also where Pakistan's role in backing the insurgency is being called out, with a sanctioned Pakistan hashtag doing the rounds on Twitter. Several Twitter users posting tweets like this with the sanctioned Pakistan hashtag. Beyond hashtags, though, the impact on the ground is already proving to be devastating. The UN estimates close to 2,500 civilians have been killed or injured, in May and June, highest in these months since they started keeping records. Many thousands more have become refugees, internally displaced, as they flee the violence, like this video on the screen demonstrates, a report shot by Tolo News, based in Kabul. All right, joining me tonight on Reality Check, I have with me Lisa Curtis, Director of the India Pacific Security Program at the Center for a New American Security. C. Christine Fair, PhD, Professor Security Studies at Georgetown University. A close India AFPAC watcher is with us. Rakesh Sood, Distinguished Fellow at ORF, former Indian Ambassador to Afghanistan, is with us. Also Omar Altaf, journalist based in Islamabad. Thank you all so much for being here. We're also trying to get you a voice from Kabul, Mariam Soleimankhil. She's an MP in Afghanistan's parliament, but she told us minutes before the show that she had to rush off to a camp of IDPs or internally displaced persons because people are missing and distressed. We'll try and see if we can loop her in as well. But let me just start with you, Lisa Curtis, that as I said in my introduction, that there was always this expectation that we'll see a Taliban resurgence the moment the Americans leave, but a pace of this kind seems staggering, shocking.
Well, I absolutely agree. I don't think anybody anticipated the speed with which the Taliban would start taking over provincial capitals. It's just stunning to see that 10 provincial capitals have fallen in less than a week in the country. And I think, it's crystal clear that the Taliban is going for a military solution. So I think that the U.S. continuing to sort of, fruitlessly call on the Taliban to join peace talks, I think that needs to end. Instead, the U.S. should shift to a strategy where it's leading sanctions against Taliban leaders who are committing atrocities against Afghan civilians. And while this may not have a material impact, it certainly would send a strong signal to the Taliban and prevent future atrocities against civilians. At this point, we have to be in prevention mode. We have to prevent a bloodbath. We have to try to prevent revenge killings. So I think that there should be a shift in U.S. diplomacy at this time.
Okay. The Taliban, though, Christine Fair, continue to maintain that, at least this is the Taliban office in Doha, the political office, that this is not the Taliban of old. And in fact, Mullah Baradar, who's one of their political heads, actually gave a speech. And I'm going to read out the key points, and I'm trying to read it out with a straight face, Christine Fair, where Mullah Baradar in a speech says that according to this new look Taliban, all citizens are equal before the law. They're fully committed to human rights, minority rights, women's rights, freedom of expression. Women have the right to education and the right to work. We are committed to peace talks. It's all on the Kabul administration, which is why we're at war.
I'm like you. I can't hide my contempt. But first, I want to thank you for having me, and I want to say hello to Lisa and Ambassador Sood. I think you're going to find that there's a lot of commonality in our opinions about this.
Sure.
I agree with everything that Lisa said, but I think I've been arguing. I think I've done so in my writings now for over 16 years. That we've been fighting this war with the wrong tools, right? The reason why the Taliban are as competent and efficacious as they are is not sui generis. It is because of Pakistan. So I have found the peace talks to be nothing but a circus, a risible circus. The United States wanted to give some impression that it was trying to avoid a sort of South Vietnam-like disgrace. Well, it is very much a South Vietnam-like disgrace. And I think it should be abundantly clear to everyone that the U.S. has not done all that it could do to prevent this. I mean, I can dissect, because I've done studies on various aspects of what the United States has claimed to have done in Afghanistan. We have not built their Afghan national security forces in a way that are sustainable. We did not give them the weapon systems that they needed. We gave them the weapon systems that we wanted to give them because it would create purchasing opportunities for U.S. weapon systems.
Right.
We did not do anything to curb Pakistan's unstinting support for the Taliban. And I am completely at a loss as to what it is that Pakistan has to do before these imbeciles in Washington, D.C. conclude that Pakistan needs sanctions.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about wide sweeping sanctions that will impose harm upon the Pakistani people. I'm talking about specific targeted sanctions against the ISI. I'm talking about specific targeted sanctions against specific individuals in the Pakistan military and intelligence apparatus for which we have intelligence that they are supporting the Taliban.
Sure.
And I'm completely, just make one final point, because I'm sure so many of your viewers are equally baffled by this. The United States declared the Republican Guards of Iran to be a foreign terrorist organization.
Right.
Can someone explain to me, like I'm a child, why the ISI is not a foreign terrorist organization?
Right. Okay. Omar Altaf, would you like to respond to that? That is this resurgent Taliban increasingly reviving questions over Pakistan's complicity in what's going on?
I think I don't know where Professor Christine Fair got her wish list from. There is no inkling that Pakistan is going to be sanctioned by the U.S. No U.S. administration has even thought about sanctioning Pakistan.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. It could be she could be wishing about that, but that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Pakistan
Omar
has very
Altaf,
close relationship.
Sure. This is not so much about whether it's going to happen or not, but about Pakistan's complicity in continuing to strategically and otherwise foster and support the Taliban.
No, but the Afghan army,
Yes.
supported by America, has fallen. It's capitulated. The Afghan provincial capitals are falling like dominoes. How is it a fault of Pakistan if the Afghan army has lost the will to fight, as has been highlighted by President Biden, that it's their country. They have to fight for their country, for their survival.
So you're saying,
but they have
you're
lost.
saying that Pakistan is not sheltering and providing every possible form of
Absolutely
support
not.
to the Taliban?
Pakistan, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Pakistan
Wow.
facilitated a peace process. Pakistan, it's in Pakistan's interest. Pakistan's interest lies in the fact that there should
Omar-
be no resurgence of Taliban in Pakistani territory.
Omar
If
Altaf,
Afghan
there's
Taliban gains ground,
the Quetta
if
Shura. I
Afghan
mean,
Taliban gains
I
ground,
could go on. The main Taliban Shuras are based in Pakistan. They're actually named after the Pakistani cities where they're based.
everyone is negotiating with Taliban. Everyone has got relations with Taliban.
Okay.
India is negotiating with Taliban. Mullah brother is visiting China. US is holding talks with
That's
Taliban.
different, sir.
So
That's not
India
quite
is
the same
conducting
thing.
talks with
Okay.
Taliban. Pakistan isn't providing a sanctuary to militants to attack any other country, whether they
Okay.
be from Taliban or
I'm sure-
any terrorist group.
Okay, I'm sure everyone in the panel may want to respond. Christine Fair, okay, I got it. Christine Fair, let me just, I'll come to you, Ambassador Sood. Just give me 1 second. Christine Fair wants to just jump in quickly. Yes, Christine, sorry.
जी एक आदमी है या बेवकूफ इंसान है वो बिल्कुल झूठ बोल रहे हैं
No, 1 second,
मुसलसल झूठ
Christine
बोल
Fair, with
रहे
all
हैं।
respect,
I
let's
think you should
try and
behave
keep it
like an
civil.
academic.
Oi.
Christine
I
Fair,
think you
Christine
should
Fair, let's keep
behave
it
like an
civil. Let's
academic.
keep it civil.
There is no
I
point
am
in
keeping
launching-
it civil because
Okay, but-
no, seriously, this
personal
man
attack.
is insulting
Listen.
the intelligence of
Okay,
every single
okay,
one
okay,
of
but
us
let's-
on this
let's-
panel
academic community.
and your
You should
viewers.
behave.
Let's keep it civil. Let's keep it, Christine, let's keep it civil. I request you, right? Things are as it is bad enough, so let's try and keep the conversation civil. But Rakesh Sood, is India particularly in a tricky situation, because we did towards the end also now start to initiate some kind of dialogue with the Taliban as we realized the rapid pace at which the situation on the ground was changing. But in hindsight, is that a mistake, given that, as others have pointed out, the Taliban don't seem to be really interested in peace? They just seem to be just back to the old, just war, seize territory, all of that.
Well, let me just step back a little.
Sure.
The worst wounds are the ones that we inflict on ourselves. That is why they say that there is no delusion worse than self-delusion.
Sure.
And the basic self-delusion was that the Doha Agreement, which is essentially a US withdrawal safe passage agreement, has been sold to the world, and the world accepted it as a peace agreement. After all, the UN Security Council endorsed it unanimously.
Right.
Ironically, it was signed on 29th of February. And I have often maintained that it is not a coincidence, because by the time the anniversary comes around,
Yes.
the agreement would have been consigned to the dustbin of history.
Right.
Now, let me come to the question you posed to me about India. I have maintained for a number of years
Yes.
that we should have opened up our own links with the Taliban to judge who's calling the shots
Okay.
and who and to what extent.
Right.
Because we know that there are factions within the Taliban.
Right.
However, I also maintain that perhaps now is not the time. Maybe we should have done that. After all, the process of legitimization of Taliban began in 2013
Right.
when they opened the Doha office.
Right.
Now, for Pakistan, that was victory number one. To get the Taliban to open an office in Afghanistan, in Doha, because that meant that they had come out from the cold,
Right.
and they were now out in the open.
Right.
Second, it enabled international media, many other countries to start talking to them, engaging with it.
Right.
And the second major opening came in 2018 when the US opened direct talks.
Right.
Now the Taliban were perfectly kosher and legitimate.
Okay.
Simple.
So,
And now if we think that we are going to engage with the Taliban, I'm afraid it's a bit too late. It's like, you jump into a river to run swimming, but not when the river is in flood.
right. You're saying now it's perhaps too late. But let's just
Now
look.
it's point.
Okay. Let's just look at now at what the immediate future might hold, Lisa Curtis, and I'll get all of you to try and do a little bit of crystal ball gazing. Is it firstly inevitable, as some US intel, leaked US intel suggested, that Kabul, other provinces and regions are in threat, but Kabul itself could fall fairly soon, and so we might be seeing a return of Taliban rule? Is that a given, or what's your sense?
I think given what we've seen over the last week, anything's possible. Look, we hear that the Afghan National Security Forces are regrouping, retrenching. They're trying to keep up their morale. But, just given what's happened, particularly in the north, where people thought, the Afghan government would be able to hold up longer, I think that we have to open ourselves to the potential for Kabul to fall, as early as this fall. And certainly the U.S. government is preparing in that direction. They're considering what to do about the embassy. They've called on the Taliban to spare the U.S. embassy if they do come into the capital, which, again, just is such a weak position that the Biden administration is putting itself in.
Right.
And I think, I agree with Rakesh Sood that the Doha agreement was a withdrawal agreement. It was not a peace agreement. It is an extremely weak agreement. And the Biden administration had the opportunity to reevaluate it and renegotiate it, but it did not take that opportunity.
Okay.
And so now we're stuck with this terrible agreement.
Okay.
And I think, let me just make one more point, because it's important. People need to study what the impact was of the U.S. forcing the Afghan government to release those 5,000 Taliban prisoners last year, and what role those Taliban are playing in the military advance we're seeing play out right now. There's a lot of questions that will need to be asked about the way the Doha agreement was negotiated.
Okay. Christine Fair, in a sense, the same question to you. Do you also think that it's inevitable Kabul will fall, and if there is a return of the Taliban, will it be almost exactly as terrible as last time, or is there some indication to suggest that this time they might tone it down because they are trying to seek international legitimacy?
So first of all, I really want to agree strongly with what Lisa just said. And Lisa's being modest, she had an inside seat on that circus. But I would also go a little bit further than what she did. It's not only that the United States forced Ghani to release these 5,000, known murderers. The United States did everything it could to weaken the government of Ghani. It consistently undermined his government. It was putting pressure on him to basically step down and create some political arrangement in which the Taliban would have a stake, despite the fact that the Taliban, have not earned that through garnering public support. So I think the United States just bears so much responsibility. And the fact that Biden had an opportunity to take a departure from what Trump had planned to do, it's simply criminal. And I'm going to go back to my central point. The Americans are being told that the Afghans have to fight this on their own. It's their country. But what's really been missed is that there were very serious flaws in the training that the United States did. And you would have an entire show on this alone. So this is not fair to say that the Afghans have to do this on their own.
Fair enough.
They certainly cannot do it on their own without these sanctuaries in Pakistan. So to go specifically to your question, I've actually, it's not true to say that this has been an unexpected precipitant collapse of the Afghan government. Many of us actually had expected this to happen within 6 months of the Biden administration. So by my pessimistic timelines, the Taliban are actually behind. So I actually do expect Kabul to fall, and I don't expect them to be a nicer, kinder Taliban. I actually expect them to be a more vicious Taliban, because unlike the Afghanistan that they took over by 1998, this is a much more developed Afghanistan. Women and girls have grown up this last 20 years expecting a different future. So they have to be much more destructive, murderous. They have to engage in many more revenge killings. And then finally, there are still a lot of people that the United States has failed to get out of the country who worked with us. So this is going to be a return of a much more vicious Taliban that's going to have even more blood on their hands.
Omar Altaf, is Pakistan, moving away from a moment about Pakistan's own complicity, but is there also a risk to Pakistan as well with the Taliban returning, that they could now turn on Pakistan,
Absolutely, Vasu. Pakistan doesn't want a resurgent Taliban in Afghanistan, because that could also lead to TTP regrouping in Pakistan. And because TTP and Afghan Taliban are interconnected and almost two sides
TTP
of the same coin.
Terrorist, yes.
Tehreek Taliban Pakistan. So in Pakistan, no one is cheering Taliban, neither the Pakistani establishment or the government. And we want a peaceful solution, a political solution to the Afghan issue. And Pakistan has also facilitated that. And what Christine Fair is saying is very unfair. It's extremely unfair. It is something which no US administration has accused Pakistan of. Doesn't the CIA know what Pakistan is doing? Doesn't the Biden administration know? Wasn't Trump aware of all this, what she is alleging?
I think the point seems to be that everyone was aware, but no one was really doing anything about it. And I think that's...
Why are they Pakistan? Why? Is the US scared of Pakistan?
Just very last word from you, Rakesh Sood. What do you make of this kind of denialism that that Pakistan continuing to insist that they are as concerned about this as everybody else, and they've done nothing to foster and nourish the Taliban?
Well, everybody knows, after all, it is called Quetta Shura for a reason. It is called Miram Shah Shura for a reason. It is called Peshawar Shura for a reason.
Right. These are all Taliban Shuras based in Pakistan. Yes.
And they are all based in Pakistan. They are not based in Afghanistan.
There are more than 4 million Afghans residing in Pakistan.
Right. I agree. I'm not.
Omar,
I'm not disputing that.
But the Taliban Shuras, Omar, is what we're talking about.
But we are talking about Taliban Shuras. We are not talking about refugees.
They can't exist there without Pakistan's backing. Come
on. There is a Doha Shura as well, which has been endorsed by the US.
Doha has still not been called a Shura. And we don't know how much clout they have.
Shura only means a parliament.
All right.
There is nothing wrong. But Shura doesn't mean a terror organization.
Last word. Just a second. Omar, yes, Ambassador Sood, very quickly, we have to wrap.
I was just saying that I agree with both Lisa and Christine in terms of the fact that the Taliban have been legitimized by the US. And in fact, the whole release of the 5,000 plus Taliban
Right.
is actually shows that they've been legitimized at the cost of delegitimizing the Kabul, because the Kabul government was not involved.
Well, that's
where the US was coming from.
That's where the US stands, but we have to I know I'd love to go on. I know everyone wants to make more points, but we'll have to leave it there. We will come back to it because this is an evolving story and a deeply concerning story. Thank you all so much for being on the show. You've been a great panel. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.